Hello and welcome. Today we are going to do a gentle beginner Pilates sequence for shoulder pain, shoulder stiffness and pain, which will include upper back stiffness and pain. If you do have an acute injury, dislocation, anything where you are in a lot of pain and you have not yet been assessed by a physician or a physiotherapist, please do so first. However, if you do have ongoing chronic discomfort in your shoulders, this is for you today. Please make sure that you're comfortable throughout, that you don't feel that there's any pinching or tingling or otherwise discomfort in your body. Let's begin. And as this is a beginner's class, I want to talk about a few of the principles of Pilates. And I want to go over what that means in your body so that as I'm describing the exercises, it makes sense to you. Otherwise, if you haven't heard it before, your body's going to do what it's going to do, and it'll be hard to really find the movement we're looking for. So I'm first going to talk about the principle of dissociating joints. So when I talk about dissociation, it is kind of a big long word, but all it means is that can we control movement through one joint without having movement through the other one? And if you work at a desk, if you have stiff shoulders, then you are very familiar, I am sure, with your tendency to do this as your arms come forward. So some of the work that we'll be doing today is going to be coaxing you to relax and let go as you move your shoulder in space. So that is the principle of dissociation. The other principle that I want to talk about in Pilates is around articulation. So I will talk about articulating through different segments of the spine. And why that matters is because sometimes we move just through one segment. So a lot of people like to just hinge here. But as we're moving, if we're not able to also find thoracics, that's that upper back flexion and that upper back extension without just sticking our chest out and hinging there, then it makes that upper body and the upper spine rather stiff. And then it becomes hard to build the strength that helps our shoulders. So dissociation and articulation are our fun words for today. All right, I hope you have fun. I hope you learned something about your body and come out of this today feeling better. So I'm going to start with you on the mat. I want you to be nice and comfortable. Make sure that your back is on the mat in a way that you can feel your shoulder blades comfortably on the mat. Your feet are about hip width apart, and you have just a natural curve of your lower spine. Now we're going to start by bringing the arms up. So you're going to bring your arms up into the air, and we are going to find protraction. So protraction is just reaching the hands up. It's like the shoulder blades are wrapping themselves around the arms. Protraction does not mean wearing your shoulders as earrings. It's just opening up to the sky and opening up to the sky. And one more. Relax your arms back down. Now this time as you bring your arms up, I want you to think about keeping your rib cage from coming up with them. So try to bring that upper core into play as the shoulders move into their shoulder flexion, avoiding the rib cage moving along with. So you're going to find that upper core. So let's continue. Arms slowly moving down. And in Pilates, we call this Ballet Arms. And you'll notice as you reach up and overhead, what does your body want to do? Because this is an opportunity for you to dissociate, for you to change how your body moves in space. So for some people, moving through that upper joint range can feel challenging because it feels a little stiff there. And that might be why you want to, instead of moving through that joint, bring your shoulders up. So I'm just asking you to resist that temptation. You'll find that you move and feel the stretch and mobility in different ways. We're gliding that joint and lubricating that joint into this range. Notice if you feel tightness through the lats when you go overhead. So it's that muscle that moves into your axilla, your armpit. As you move overhead, you might find that stiffness wants to bring you into more of a back arch. Again, don't let it. Now, it's important, speaking of principles in Pilates, we talk a little bit about control when we're doing Pilates too sometimes. So obviously, I'm getting you to think about a few things. And you're probably thinking, wait, this is beginner Pilates and my mind is just working on overdrive. So as much as we want control in Pilates, so we want to find that dissociation, we want to avoid moving through one segment. We also want to find flow. So for you now, I want you to close your eyes and find your flow. Let your arms come overhead. Feel where those muscles are tight and breathe into those spaces. So that we can get to a place where we're no longer really thinking, but we're just feeling and feeling that movement, feeling that opportunity for opening. So now that we've moved through Ballet Arms, I want you now to come into what is Hug a Tree. So with Hug a Tree, we're now leading with our elbows as we bring our elbows to the ground. So if you have tightness through the nerves and you feel like, ooh, that feels tingly and uncomfortable, then you don't have to go all the way down. Notice what your upper rib cage wants to do and keep that from traveling up, keep that connected. There's a lot of core involvement in Pilates, which is wonderful and functional because in daily life, if you're moving with a strong core, then it's very protective of joints that are further away from the body. It makes movement more powerful. So if you're finding that engaging that core to keep your rib cage connected, to keep your shoulder blades on the ground is a challenge, then that is a great place to be starting. Now finding your flow through those arms. We're going to move into a side lying exercise. And now that we've moved overhead and articulated through those joints overhead, I want to explore a different plane of motion. So you might want to have something under your neck here. I'm going to find a block. Find a block or pillow under your neck. And now you're reaching that upper arm over top. You can straighten the bottom leg if that feels good for your body. And we're coming into chalk circles. So we are imagining that we're tracing a circle overhead. Some people call these windmills as well. So whatever works for you, make up your own name. And I love this exercise. It was one of the first exercises that I ever explored years ago when I started doing yoga. And the awareness of where that tightness was all through this range was incredible for me and a really meditative practice. So making sure that if there's any restriction in terms of space, you bend your elbow and move through that and continue to trace. Now, most people don't reach and touch the floor initially, and that is totally fine. And that's not our goal. Our goal is to breathe and open up into those tight spaces and places. So here we're finding some mobility of the thoracic spine. We're opening up through the pecs right now. This is a wonderful pec stretch. And finding some lat length overhead and articulating through the joint all the while. So you can take as long as you want. Pause the video, come back to it, and take your time to really enjoy this exercise, because it really is truly a multi-dimensional exercise where you get into many spaces, muscles, and places. So now continuing with the other arm, reaching. Now you'll notice I have a couple of options here. I can just relax into this, or if I want to get a little bit of a side oblique connection and plank, then this is a nice thing that I can do to just maintain parallel through my core, tracing through here, letting the neck follow as it wants to, depending on how that neck is feeling. So I have more mobility in my left side, which is interesting for me. And at this point here, it's very hard to continue to trace the ground, and so I reach and continue to relax through that movement. Coming to the ground again, all the way back to my side body. And continuing the other way. What I love about Pilates is that as much as there's a structure, it is definitely about exploration. Similar to yoga in a way, where you're really coming home to understanding that your body is your home, and that listening to your body, having those sensations to your body as partners and guiding you where to move, is really, really important and a wonderful relationship to cultivate. Sometimes we don't even know when we're holding our breath. Sometimes we don't even know when we're restricting our body. So now we're going to come into a activation that's a little bit stronger through the core, involving our arms again to reinforce this pattern of upper transverse abdominis connection, to make sure our rib cage is not just flaring out, that it's connected nicely. So we're coming into dead bug. Now for some people, this can be a little bit intense if they've never done exercise like this before. And so for you, if that's the case, then you can just keep your feet on the mat. If you're bringing your legs up, what we're going to do is move diagonally. And so the right arm and the left leg are extending out and coming back. And then the left arm and the right leg are extending out and coming back. You'll notice my left leg wanted to sneak up and move. So it's interesting. It's almost like a brain training as well, to move two body parts without the others. Like that exercise where you try to rub your head and your belly at the same time. And hug your knees together, just to iron out any tension that you might have created through that exercise on its own. Now, if you have a foam roller, then I want you to pause the video and grab it. Otherwise, a bath towel rolled up will do the trick. So with a bath towel rolled up or a foam roller, you want to place that just in the middle of your back. And you're going to bring your hands behind your head, let your elbows fall out. It should feel comfortable enough, so making sure it's not irritating you. I'm going to get you to let your back lean over. So you're coming into a nice extension stretch. As you do, try not to flare up. So I don't want this to be a back bend of the mid back. I want this to be an upper back stretch and mobilization. And then coming back in. Open up through the elbows and extend back out, back in, and extend back out. And if and only if this feels nice for you, you can press into your heels and roll a couple of segments just to iron out that tension through the T-spine. So play with that if it feels safe and nice for you. Maybe you've used a foam roller before. Otherwise, you can just stick with the stretch for now. Coming in and out. In and out. And we're going to come up onto hands and knees into tabletop. Your hands under your shoulders and stack your knees under your hips. Finding that nice connection, have a look at your arms and your elbows. Have your elbows inside your elbows facing each other and have your upper traps relaxed. Now in this position, I want you to find your serratus. Your serratus anterior brings you into a little bit of protraction. So if you look at what I'm doing, it is subtle. I'm pushing it to my hands to wrap those shoulder blades around, finding a flatter back. If you're someone that in this position feels like you're really hinging on your shoulders, that could be the reason for your shoulder discomfort through overhead movement, that you lack a bit of that stability. So finding that stability, for some people, this on its own is an exercise that is going to be helpful to improve their strength. For some people, it's too intense, and what's needed is to come and do these kinds of scapular push-ups on the wall. So find that for you. If you start to notice tension in your upper traps, then I want you to take a little break here. Come into a child's pose. We're going to bring yoga into it. Relax your neck. Take a deep breath. And we're going to come into Swan. So in Swan or Swan Prep, I want to bring the shoulders away from the ears. And I want to bring them into a little bit of downward rotation. I want to elevate my neck in such a way that I'm not extending, but it's as though it's reaching out of my body. So axial decompression, where you think about a golden thread coming from the crown of the head towards the ceiling. Now pushing into my hands a little bit. I want to feel like my clavicles are opening a little bit wider. It's as much a chest stretch as it is an upper thoracic spine mobilization. So we're going to come into this a couple of times. What I don't want you to do is just arching through your lower back, which might be more obvious or comfortable for you. And coming into that last one, push into your forearms, push into your hands, and relax your head. Reach your arms behind your back. Breathe into your back a moment. And then bring your hands underneath your head, interlacing fingers. This next exercise is called diamond press, and I want you to peel your elbow up from the floor. Now, what's interesting about this is that people have different strategies. Some people try to bring their shoulder up, so this is just creating tension here. On my right side, I overcompensate with my lat, and I pull it all the way down. I don't want to do this because my lat gets tight, so I'm fighting that inclination as I come up and then rotate through. And then on the other side, for me, this is easier to think about the back of my shoulder leading through external rotation. Feel the back of my deltoid. And I'm finding it a little bit better now because the right side for me is a little weaker in the musculature behind my shoulder. That's why I want to use the lat to pull and stabilize. So this is still an exploration for you. If you're feeling that in the back of the shoulder, wonderful. And come back to center. Forehead down, bring arms behind your back. And we're going to come into dart. So here we are bringing the shoulder blades in and back. You can gaze forward. Glutes are really connected here. Core is pulling inwards so that you're not kinking through the lower back. I want you to feel this in the posterior arms. So you're feeling your triceps firing as well. You're going to hold this for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Coming back up. Now I want you to sit on your mat. Find a position with your shoulders where you are rolling them up and back and forward. I want you to come into a seated cat-cow where you're exploring movement all through the middle, upper, and lower back. Draw your belly button in and trying to articulate through every part of the spine like a slinky. Notice where you maybe skip over, where you feel a bit tighter, where you feel like your shoulders want to reach up and really explore this articulation. I want you to think of each little segment of your spine as an opportunity to lubricate, like you've got a little tin can. You're squirting a little bit of the oil, the synovial fluid through with each tiny little movement. And then let yourself flow through that movement. The very last exercise today is going to combine movement through the shoulders with movement through the T-spine. I am going to do a modified version of a mermaid stretch. So I'm sitting with my legs crossed. My left hand is coming on the mat and I'm reaching my right arm up. As I reach up, I want to avoid bringing shoulders up like so. So finding the space here. As I reach long, I keep my right hip connected and reach out through my spine as opposed to collapsing in through my rib cage. Reaching out through my spine, I get to this point where that is my sweet spot for tension. It hurts so good, it's uncomfortable, yet comfortable. And then I continue to reach with that right arm, let my head relax, come down, and if I can, and this is my tight side, I will, on the exhale, rotate and find my obliques to bring me into more of a spinal rotation. Inhale, reach, 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 and exhale, rotate a little more. Now wherever my hand lands, I'm going to place my left hand there. Check in with my right hip and breathe in this exercise. So it's quite an intense stretch for me, but again, it's a safe place. It feels wonderful through the back of my shoulder, in through the spine. It's important to keep breathing. Each inhale, you want to expand laterally through your rib cage. That's naturally what your body wants to do if you let it. In the exhale, you might find that those obliques can bring you into more of that twist. I like to press up through my hands here to find a little bit of extension. And then come all the way up. Now again, this is a beginner Pilates class. So for you, if that felt like it was too intense, this is a nice stretch on its own. And then looking down, you might find a little bit of rotation. There is no destination here. Right and left will be different. And every day might be different for you as well. And we're certainly not comparing ourselves to our neighbors. So the right hand now coming next to the right hip, reaching up, lengthening, lengthening, lengthening. And then you might find, so for me right now, I'm feeling the dural tension. So I'm feeling tension through the nerves on the right side. So I want to avoid overstretching that in a way that's not going to feel good. But so far, it's still feeling good. I collapsed a little bit through that right rib cage, so I'm going to lean and reach. And then I'm going to rotate through that motion. Deep breath in, reach, exhale, and rotate. Breath in, reach, exhale, and rotate. And then placing my hand down wherever it lands. And then sometimes I surprise myself. I feel like my right side is tighter, but this is showing me that the left is struggling as well to reach the floor. There is, I'm going to betray my yoga background here. There is a practice in yoga which I think is so critical and important for any mindful movement practice, and it's called ahimsa. And it's the practice of non-judgment, of understanding that we are incredible creatures. We are perfectly imperfect. That this moment and what's happening in our bodies at this moment, it is one to genuinely embrace and appreciate, and then understanding just the joy and the magic of always being able to change and grow, get stronger, get clear, become more authentic. And it's that journey that is what makes this so much fun for me. And it is incorporating this into my physiotherapy practice that I find can make some really long-term transformational change in people's bodies that can support the other therapy that I'm doing as well. If you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it, please subscribe. I will be doing and uploading more of these classes specific to different areas and different pain syndromes. And also, if you could just jot your name down where you're from in the comments, and if you're up to it, say a little bit about where you're coming from. Maybe if you've had an injury, how that's evolved. Share as much as you like or as little. Thank you so much for joining me.